What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today we're going to be taking a look at this week's community gaming tournament, which was won by Copycat, the newest card added to Marvel Snap this week alongside Cassandra Nova. And also, Copycat was the winner of this week because the decks that we're going to see are kind of known quantities. I wouldn't call them copycats necessarily, but there's not going to be anything like super crazy that you haven't seen before. I will say there is some nice innovation in the winners list from user Luckily Me. They were playing RSM, obviously a very popular deck right now, but there's some spice in it. So first off, we have the aforementioned Copycat, which allows you to steal cards from the bottom of your opponent's deck, but there's also some other interesting tech in this. White Widow, not typically a card that we see in RSM lists, but it's pretty good in the metagame right now because people are either playing Angela or they're playing a lot of RSM, or we also see a lot of Phoenix Force. That's going to be a big thing in this tournament. White Widow is just a good card all around as a 2/6. It's either a 2/2 or a 2/6, but also with some disruptive elements. Imagine giving this to your opponent and then they Carnage or Venom it, and then when they Phoenix Force, they have a 50% chance to just grab a Widow's Kiss. That's pretty funny. US Agent, also not typically a card that we see in RSM lists, but it could be good. I have seen US Agent be good in some decks. It kind of does give me a little bit of pause because this deck plays a lot of big cards, and Agent Coulson makes cards that US Agent can shrink, and if you're playing Nick Fury, then that's more cards that US Agent all makes smaller. So there is some built-in tension with that, but they think it's a good metagame call. It's like another way to, basically when you Dr. Octopus your opponent, you sometimes need to Shang-Chi. Like, Dr. Octopus is a great disruptive tool because it takes a bunch of cards from your opponent and locks them out of one location. Oftentimes, though, you lose that location. You can either blob it or you can Shang-Chi it, and now this deck also has access to US Agent as an additional way to potentially try to flip the Dr. Octopus location. So I think that's what's going on there with the card, and I have lost some games to US Agent that have just been like randomly generated out of my opponent's RSM. That is one of the cool things about RSM as well, is it kind of inspires innovation in that way that allows you to test out other cards and see which ones of them would be good. That was how I first got turned on to Leech, I believe. And yeah, I just think that that's definitely an underrepresented aspect of the card. I've talked about how it allows you to get the new cards immediately, and I've played games with Copycat already because of RSM and Cassandra Nova before I had unlocked it. But yeah, just the fact that it allows you to also test old cards too that you might have otherwise forgotten about, I think is really fun. And then let's also not forget about these old cards here. Be Happy was able to get a second place finish with Phoenix Force, Sans, Nimrod, and Shuri. This is a more Loki focused version of the deck with Cable in it, as well as Snowguard. So Cable, pretty good in those mirrors, being able to steal your opponent's combo pieces, and then just additional Loki cards in the form of Snowguard. Sometimes we see just Loki plus Agent Coulson. Sometimes we see Loki plus Agent Coulson plus Snowguard. And then Nico is also a really good tool. It allows you to, so I don't know if I've like fully articulated this in a video, but Nico is very, very good in this deck. It's got the Destroy mode, which is something that you're trying to do. It's got the Copy a Card mode, which can work really well with Phoenix Force. The Draw Cards and Copy a Card mode also both can do some work with Loki. And then you don't typically want the mode where you are getting additional power on something or doubling something, but you can take the double Nico mode, destroy it, and then reanimate it with Phoenix Force, and then you get to double it again on your next play because you'll re-trigger that on reveal. So that really works. And then also sometimes you can move with Nico. And so you are really able to make use of a lot of this card's different abilities. I guess the +2 mode, you can throw on a Human Torch or a Multiple Man to some good use time every once in a while as well. So all of that is really sweet. Again, this was Be Happy in second place. I accidentally did not type their name into this form, but this was the top 4 of the tournament. We are only, as far as actually, I mean, we can look at the top decks from the entire tournament right here on this page. I just didn't make them all into graphics because if we take a look at this sheet right here, we see Arishem, Loki, Phoenix Force, Arishem, Phoenix Force. So that's the top 4. And then we've got a traditional Loki list, Devil Dinosaur, another Arishem. This one actually looks spicy. It is a, oh, it's a Mr. Negative list. Okay, we have not seen Mr. Negative in a second. It's like Mr. Negative Ravona, but weird because, okay, here's the Iron Man. I was looking for Iron Man up in the 6-cost cards because this list is not playing. Sometimes we see Noel plus Arnim Zola at the top of the curve. This player choosing, and we can see who this is, sorry, Fully is deciding to play Onslaught at the top of the curve, which is not really a card that we see super often. And when we see Jane, often I see that paired alongside Null and Arnim Zola, but they're really just going for Jane to draw that flipped over Iron Man, which is obviously still really powerful. Loki, Phoenix Force, Arishem, Phoenix Force. So a lot of the same stuff here going into the top 12. In 13th place, it's a top 16 deck. It's not necessarily 13th place. We have a Blue Zoo dump, and then we've got another Phoenix Force, another Arishem, a Silver Surfer, finally to round out the top 16, a little bit of something different. Blue Zoo is, I mean, this is kind of noteworthy. It's only a top 16 finish, but still never seeing Kazar ever in these videos. But yeah, you can check out this spreadsheet in the video description. I'm going to go over it a little bit as well, but I just didn't want to make graphics for, you know, more Arishem, Loki, and Living Tribunal Phoenix Force lists. They're all basically the same here, but you can take a look at some of the differences. Sometimes there's some different cards in Phoenix Force. It looks like, though, well, actually, if we go into breakdown, we can see that there were 8 copies of Phoenix Force in this tournament and 8 copies of Living Tribunal. Now, those don't all go 1 for 1. As we can see, there were 6 copies of Living Tribunal in the top 16 and only 5 copies of Phoenix Force, and then 2 copies of Phoenix Force in the top 8, but 3 Living Tribunals. So 1 extra mismatch of Living Tribunals and Phoenix Force is snuck in there somewhere, but most people playing that same list. Interestingly, I believe this is the first time that Agent Coulson has been the #1 most played card in a tournament. Now, I will say I'm going to still give it to Loki here. The one deck playing Agent Coulson that is not playing Loki is an Arishem list that just decided not to play Loki for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't own the card or something. Anybody can enter into these events. So we'll still say Loki probably is what you want to consider as the most played card in this format. And then we can look at the, I've been doing this now just as kind of like an approximation of win rates. We can see how many of these cards make it into the top 16 and top 8. And then we can see the biggest losers and shakers of it all. So the biggest card here is I guess Loki and Agent Coulson. Oh, actually, that's interesting. Yeah, because the one Agent Coulson player didn't play Loki, that made Loki the biggest winner of the tournament into the top 16. So that's kind of funny. And then Living Tribunal doing really well, and Phoenix Force not far behind. Pretty good there with that. Arshem still did well. Relatively, of the 11 players that played Arshem, 6 of them made it into the top 16. So still pretty good results here for Arshem. What else is interesting? Quinjet falling down a little bit. You can see not everyone choosing to play Quinjet. I think that Quinjet is really cool and really good, but it does feel like sometimes it's not necessary. And to that point, it's even a little bit of a liability. So Willow on Twitter, if you're not familiar with them, they used to be big into DC Dual Force when that was around, but now they are back playing and making content around Marvel Snap. And they have some interesting takes on things, and they were also really hot on Arshem when it first was previewed, like myself. And one thing that we kind of disagreed on, I think that I've been proven right about more things than them probably on Arshem, but one thing is they weren't sure about card generation for Arshem. And specifically, Quinjet, they were feeling that it might not have as big of an impact. And that could be true. Quinjet is definitely going to help you in the games where you draw Loki, and it's going to help you in the games where you just draw a bunch of random stuff. But it also is a 1-2. And yeah, I think it's interesting. We're seeing a pretty high Quinjet appearance because it's in a decent amount of the Arshem lists and a lot of the non-Phoenix Force Loki lists. But yeah, that would only take away 8. So I don't know, either not all of the Phoenix Force players were playing Loki. We could maybe break that down as well. I just have a breakdown of the Arshem deck list. That's all I've gone further in detail into. But I do think it would be interesting to take a look specifically at Quinjet. I guess in Arshem is really what we're interested in, because Quinjet and Loki I think is pretty straightforward. You definitely want that, and you probably don't want it in your Phoenix Force lists because you're not generating that many cards, but I do still think it's probably good in Arshem. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the metagame since this tournament in this video as well, because there's been a lot of competitive Marvel Snap played this week. This tournament was played first day of the week, which is Tuesday for Marvel Snap. That's just when Community Gaming runs these tournaments. And since then, obviously, we've seen a little bit of a shift in the metagame as, I don't even see it here, as Angela, which was not a good performer. Look at this. Look at all these cards down here in negative performance rates. But Angela has done really well this week in Deadpool's Diner because everyone is playing Arshem. As we see in this mode, or in tournaments rather, a lot less Arshem and a lot worse performance from these Angela decks. The reason that I'm bringing that up though is because these Angela decks, typically we also see a little bit of like, yeah, here we go, Green Goblin in them. Potentially, I guess White Widow did do well. That's why we don't see White Widow here. Is that right? Control F, White. Okay, no, White Widow was actually not a great performer. It was in this block of cards with Shang-Chi, which always has a slightly negative performance, and Devil Dinosaur also not doing well this week. But the reason that I bring this up is like Quinjet becomes a real liability against these Angela decks because if they're like junking you, or yeah, just like junking you with, I don't know, I see Green Goblin in them sometimes too, and I'm trying to think if I'm missing another card. They don't typically play Hobgoblin. Well, maybe I'll come to it as we get through this video. But that is certainly a reason not to play Quinjet. Right now, it's really interesting that we see this deck do so poorly. Only 2 people had Cassandra Nova at the time of this tournament, which made it a really interesting like bubble metagame. I was kind of looking at the Deadpool's Diner release, and I'm looking at Copycat as this week's release and Cassandra Nova as next week's release, because most people are probably getting Cassandra Nova either now, like past 2 days, or they just didn't have it in time for this tournament, right? So it makes sense we might see some more impact of Cassandra next week, and because of that we might see less people play RSM. We might see a lot more of Angela Darkhawk, and it's interesting because of how much Angela Darkhawk there already was in this tournament, and it seems like the tournament metagame has maybe already answered for it. But yeah, really interesting to not see a great performance from those. There is a really interesting thing in Deadpool's Diner. So there's kind of 2 things that I wanted to bring up. One is that there are sort of pocket metagames because of the tiered system. I was very seen a lot of that in Pokemon Go, in the Go Battle League, but also you see that on many ladders, and I've talked about it in the past, but the tiered system of Deadpool's Diner made pocket metas like much more noticeable. And one thing that I personally kind of, so I said before RSM came out, I'm just going to play RSM forever, and I probably will experiment with some other things just because people might get bored of seeing RSM content. I've been putting out a bunch of RSM content, by the way, on YouTube Shorts. Past, like this whole week, every day I upload like 2-3 YouTube Shorts of fun moments that I had while playing RSM. So check those out. I think those are some really cool games. I am going to have, I think, 2 longer videos on Deadpool's Diner. I'll talk more about Deadpool's Diner tomorrow, and then might also do a video where I just showcase like some of my best games, because I played a bunch yesterday to get to the Cassandra Nova, and it would take way too long to just upload these as 2-3 shorts every day. I gotta make a big video, get all the content out there before it is no longer relevant. But some people might have been looking at this week like, oh, there is a ticking clock on RSM. I have to play it before everyone gets Cassandra Nova, because then everybody's gonna have Cassandra Nova and I'm not gonna be able to play RSM anymore. I don't think that's like entirely true. I'm still going to try to play RSM, and there's also like a little bit of just rock paper scissors metagame where everybody plays RSM, so everybody plays Cassandra, so people stop playing RSM, so then people stop playing Cassandra, and then you can play RSM again. But I think that might have led to people playing more RSM. That's what I'm getting to here. A lot of people were playing RSM. It is also very good, and it is also very interesting comparing RSM on ladder, which are just one of games for cubes, sometimes a very high amount of cubes in the case of Deadpool's Diner, against tournaments, which are conquest mode. And how does that match up? Do you want something more consistent in tournaments where you're going to have to grind it out, whereas in Deadpool's Diner, you're cool retreating for one, winning for 10 million, for instance. So that can really be interesting. And yeah, there's some weird stuff going on with bots right now in Deadpool's Diner. If you heard about it, you heard about it. I think it's kind of lame, but maybe I'll talk about it. I'd rather just play the game. If you're enjoying playing Marvel Snap, play Marvel Snap. If you're like doing some weird thing to grind against bots, you're not really playing Marvel Snap. Maybe you get the new card, but then like what are you even playing the game for? So that is my opinion on that. But do what you got to do. Do it. No fault. A gamer's gonna game, right? So that was, I think, really interesting to see so much RSM on Deadpool's Diner, while not seeing it represented that much on this tournament, and then really not seeing Angela Darkhawk do well at all on this tournament. We did see 4 Darkhawks and 3 making it into the top 8, but only 3 only 1 Angela, and then no Angelas in the top 8, which I think is really the metric that you want to care about. Top 16, there were only, I think, 30 to 40 players in this tournament, one of the lower turnouts for sure. And if we are on the topic of RSM and Loki, looking at health, like all of these numbers are good things to pay attention to in terms of like, oh, what things might need to be nerfed, what things might need to be buffed. But another thing that you might just want to pay attention to is how many people are actually playing in these events. And yeah, it looks like it was about 38 people by the fact that 20 is 54% of the tournament. So if people aren't playing Marvel Snap, then yeah, maybe something does need to be done. Loki has always consistently been really good in tournaments, and now it's just seeing play in 3 different archetypes, which is maybe a little too much. And I think even with a slight nerf, it would still see a lot of play. So we'll see. What else is interesting? Yeah, we looked at the shift into the top 16. Let's take a look at the shift into the top 8 as well. So some of the worst performers not getting into the top 8. We see a huge fall off from Rogue. And that's interesting. I wonder where Darkhawk was, but I guess because there just wasn't that much Darkhawk, the players that dedicated a spot to Rogue, and I've had Rogue in and out of my RSM lists, but looks like those players weren't doing well. Absorbing Man, Sunspot, Angela, all pretty similar. Let's scroll up though and see what the best performers were. We do see, so some of this data is a little bit awkward because we do see some 0%. Because people's rate did not change at all. 6 into 3 is still pretty good though. But I guess, yeah, what went up in value a little bit? Okay, Cable, and that's right. I thought this one was really interesting. Cosmo made 3 appearances in the top 8, and we're gonna see more on Cosmo in just a moment. Loki still doing pretty well, and yeah, that's basically it. That's all that I wanted to touch on from here, because I also wanted to take a look at just the breakdown of the RSM cards. So just looking at the RSM lists, this is how many times each card appeared. Everyone played Blob, everyone played Mockingbird, Shang-Chi. 1 person did not play Quinjet, 1 person did not play Agent Coulson, and 1 person also did not play Loki. And then somebody else didn't play Loki too. So this data right here, though, other than the 1 player that played Agent Coulson and didn't play Loki, somebody played High Evo RSM, is what you're looking at there. 9 Dr. Octopuses, 6 Leeches, and another thing that we can do that's kind of cool is take a look and see, okay, from those, how many made top 16, how many made it into the top 8. There were 6 RSMs in the top 16 and 3 in the top 8. So that's what you're like basing the full play numbers off of. Looks like the High Evo player did make it into the top 16 here. And anything interesting? Yeah, Nick Fury and Cable, slight overperformers compared to some of their contemporaries. Of course, these cards all here with the 100% play rates, these with the nearly 100% play rates, those are obviously pretty good cards. And then that is basically it. So anything else worth talking about? I mean, yes, White Widow, US Agent, and Copycat. I think especially, so 2 Copycats were played. This is, I believe there were like 7 Copycats in the tournament as a whole. Is that right? Yeah. 7 Copycats played in the tournament. Only two made it into the top 16. I don't think that's super impressive, but 1 did win the tournament. So definitely props there to Luckily Me with the Copycat there. I think that the U.S. Agent and White Widow are also doing some really interesting work here. I will say So I wanted to kind of give my opinions on Copycat, and I brought it up in some YouTube shorts where I showcased Copycat maybe 2 days ago. I wasn't sure on Copycat. When I did my season preview video, I said that it's probably the card that if you want to buy something this season, it's probably the card that you buy. But I was pretty clear that the best card coming out this season is Cassandra Nova, and I think that especially for free-to-play players that are low on resources, I could just see skipping Copycat. And again, skipping cards when they're just like okay is how you make sure that you have the spotlight keys to, like last month. So this month, I don't think I'm going to open up a single spotlight cache. And last month, I was able to get Cersei, Fastos, and RHM. And I think that's it. But still, I was able to get 3 of the new releases because I was conserving my resources when I didn't need to spend them otherwise. So I think that's my recommendation for Copycat. One of the other things that I always say too is wait and see. So if you've already bought Copycat, sure, I mean, this week was a little bit different. There was Deadpool's Diner. There was definitely a reason to get some cards earlier for some higher level competition. If you play in the tournaments, then you might want the new card immediately so that you can get the edge over your opponents in the event in that way. Otherwise, you are incentivized to just wait a little bit and see how things shake out. And so, to that point, Copycat did not do great in this tournament. It went down as a result of its 7 people played it, only 2 of those 7 people made it into the top 16. That is really, really terrible, like quite bad. But one person did win the event with Copycat in their deck, and I don't want to undersell that. I think Copycat could be good. So, should you get Copycat? I don't know. I really don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe. If you subscribe to this video and leave a comment on any of my videos, you're entered in for a chance to win a season pass as well as some other sweet goodies. Premium mystery variants, credits, normal mystery variants, and yeah, that's it. So make sure you hit subscribe and leave a comment. Let me know, should I get Copycat? Should you get Copycat? It won. Is it good enough? I don't know. Let me know. That's going to be it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.